Hi everyone, I am Vikshamaya Chalkani, Assistant Professor of Physics from Government Degree College for Women, Nalgonda. So, X-ray diffraction. In this lecture, we are going to discuss about the rotating crystal method, the rotating crystal technique of X-ray diffraction. So, before this topic, we have studied the powder diffraction method. The powder diffraction method, with that we can get the data very fastly, and it is applicable for many samples, but it is difficult to find out the crystal structure using powder diffraction method. So in order to find out the crystal structure, so the intensity data is required. So the intensity data, because of more reflections from different planes. Okay, higher the intensity, so we can get the information about the structure and basis. Okay, actually the location of the points, the diffraction pattern is corresponding to the interplanar spacings. So the location of points on the diffraction pattern gives the information of the interplanar spacings of different planes. But to know the structure, the intensity data of reflections of many planes is required. For that, a single crystal method is useful. In case of powder method, it is polycrystalline sample. We can say very tiny crystals are poured in a capillary tube. So it consists many more crystals. Okay. Yeah, because of that reason, we are taking a single crystal here, and we mount the crystal on goniometer, and we rotate it. Okay, so here we use fixed wavelengths, but we rotate the sample. So with that, according the angle of incidence, which obey the diffraction angles or Bragg's law, we observe the reflections of different planes. So since we are rotating the sample, which is taken in single crystalline form, this method is called rotating crystal method. Okay. So in this method, we are having we use monochromatic wavelength, so whose wavelength is fixed. So we get the monochromatic wavelength from this filter. So here we are using a filter. Its purpose is to get monochromatic wavelength, which is coming from here. After the light ray coming from here, and it is collimated with the help of this collimator. Collimator. So it collimates the X-ray, and it provides a fine beam. So it falls on this. So it is the path for directed beam. So undeviated beam. So direct beam of incidence. Okay. So whenever it falls on here, the reflections occur in all directions, and it is a green one is a photographic film. So it is again a cylindrical camera. So cylindrical camera. So the inner side, it is coated with a film, photographic film. So it is shown in green color, and this yellow color one is cylindrical camera. So it is goniometer, and which is connected to the motor, so that it is rotated as per our requirement. Okay. So whenever the direct beams come out from here, and they are stopped by heavy metals, kept here. A rigid body or heavy metal kept in the path of direct beam. Okay, this one. It is a single crystal, and we get monochromatic radiation here. So it falls on this, and multiple reflections occurs. It means reflections in all directions occur. So they form a cone. So just like a cones, different cones. So we see now in this animation. So light ray comes from here and we observe the animation. So now we are observing here. So the light ray is coming and being scattered, and so yeah, the direct beam came this side, and they are forming the cones, the different cones. Here I have shown only one cone, so it forms multiple cones. Okay, just like that. So multiple cones it forms, and it is formed on photographic film. Okay, so these structures are formed on photographic film. If we develop the photographic film and we observe the pattern. Okay, so here, so if a plane is perpendicular to the angle of incidence, that means perpendicular to the axis X-ray. So corresponding to those planes, the reflection is on this equatorial plane. So or we can say plane at the passing through the center. See that, so those reflections form a straight line on the film. So those straight lines are called. So here we have that one layer. Okay, layer line. So that one is layer line. So we see later. So in that way, so the diffraction occurs in rotating crystal method. Whenever the plane is vertical, so that is parallel to the axis of rotation, those planes, they form layer lines, and those reflections corresponding to HK0, since it is parallel to Z axis. So if we call it as Z axis, HK0, all HK0 planes form layer lines. Okay, so similarly, so there are different layer lines one over another, and the distance between uh, two layer lines is corresponding to the translation vector in that direction. Okay, so this one. So if a particular reflected ray is making some angle alpha with the incident direction, so we write the equation. So it is the alpha. Alpha is the angle between incident ray and the reflected ray. And here we are using a camera of radius 3 centimeter. So it will be useful now. So now we see the another one. So it is, if we develop the film, so it appears just like this. Okay. So if we remove the film from here, and if we stretch it, it becomes a plane, straight plane, and developing that we get so this type of pattern. Okay, this one is called layer lines. So that means all spots on this line, vertical line, sorry, horizontal line, is a straight line. So in, so if we bend it, it will be in a circular form. Okay, all each dot corresponding to a set of parallel planes. Okay, so if the spots are far away from the this line, layer line, it indicates that so those planes are nearer, those planes interplanar spacing is small, so is higher. and corresponding to the lines far away from the layer line. So those spots are corresponding to the planes whose interplanar spacing is smaller. So just like that, it is the photograph after developing. So this layer line is because of the reflections of planes which are parallel to the axis of rotation or perpendicular to the incident X-ray. So if a crystal is assumed to be rotated about A axis and the incident X-ray perpendicular to the axis of rotation. So here we are seeing, so it is the axis of rotation. If we call it as A axis or X axis, and X-ray is perpendicular here, perpendicular, and it is alpha, then from Laue equations we get this relation: A cos alpha is equal to n lambda. So here n is the order of diffraction pattern, or so here n is corresponding to the cones above and below the layer line. So n is equal to 0, that gives the layer line, and so for above, below, these are plus or minus 1 and plus or minus 2. Now, so A cos alpha is equal to n lambda, it is equation 1, and cot alpha n is equal to Sn by r. So here we are seeing, yes, here I have identified. So this one is, so from here to here, this distance. So from this distance is S, this distance is capital S, and this distance is radius. Okay, totally this distance is radius of the camera, so capital R. Now we have identified alpha. So from this triangle, it is one rectangular triangle where it is 90 degree. Right, we are having here 90 degree. So therefore, it is one rectangular triangle. From this triangle, now we are observing. So cot alpha. So that is inverse of tan alpha. Actually, tan alpha is equal to opposite side by adjacent side. So cot alpha is equal to, so adjacent side by opposite side. Okay, here we are getting the value cot alpha n is equal to Sn by r. Now, so from this equation, so it is the equation A cos alpha is equal to n lambda, then cos alpha is equal to n lambda by A. Generally, cot alpha is equal to cos alpha by sin alpha. So we are expressing this sin alpha in terms of cos alpha. So sin alpha is equal to under root 1 minus cos square alpha. So therefore we are writing in the similar way. So cot alpha n is equal to, so actually uh, cos alpha by sin alpha. So cos alpha is equal to n lambda by A. Here it is written, and sin alpha is equal to under root 1 minus n lambda by A whole square into R. So we are writing this RHS is equal to, we are writing Sn is equal to, by sending this R towards LHS as multiplier. Okay, n lambda by A, which is corresponding to cos alpha term, and this total one is corresponding to sin alpha. So in this way we are getting Sn. Sn is the distance between layer line and next to the nth layer line above the zero layer line. Okay, that one. If we square on both sides and we write the equation for A, we get A is equal to n lambda by a into r square plus sn square whole power 1 by 2. Okay, this equation. So here lambda is the wavelength of the radiation. So we use only monochromatic radiation. Therefore, it is known to us and it is corresponding to the layer line. So which layer line is being used? So that one. And r is the radius of the camera and Sn is the distance. So as I identified here from here to here, so this distance from 0 layer to and S1 layer or Sn layer. So here I have shown only one layer and above this we can identify many more layers. For which layer we are calculating? So that distance, the distance of that layer from this initial uh, okay and initial direction of incidence, but on the film we observe it as a layer line. So now we are able to calculate the lattice parameter. That means the lattice constant in the along the direction of axis of rotation. A is the lattice vector in the direction of axis of rotation. So if we want to get the other parameters B and C, we have to rotate our crystal. That means we have to tilt our crystal such that the B axis, about B axis, we are able to rotate. So later in other trial, so again we have to tilt the crystal such that so the C about C axis we can rotate. So in that way we get the lattice parameters ABC. From that we come to know the dimension of unit cell and hence structure, the structure of the material. So it is about rotating crystal method, rotating crystal diffraction method. Now we see one problem here. In a rotation photograph, 6 layer lines are observed, both above and below the zero layer line. So just like this. So here it is zero layer line we observe here, and it is above layer line and it is below layer line. So now if the height of these layer lines above the zero or below the zero, if it is below zero, we write these numbers as minus. If it is above zero, we write them as plus. So the zero layer or 0 point, the layer lines above zero layer line is 0.29, that is first layer line, we can call it as S1, and another one 0.59 to 0.91, 1.25, 1.65 and 2.12 centimeter. Then if it is the case or it is the data given, so the obtain the cell height of the crystal along the axis of rotation. That is the question asked. And other given information is radius of the camera is 3 centimeters and the wavelength of the X-rays is 1.54 angstroms. So just just now we have studied this. A is equal to n lambda by a into r square plus Sn square whole power 1 by 2. Okay. So this relation, so by substituting, here, so this equation is valid for any anyone, so any layer line. So therefore we take any one of the layer line among the 6 layer lines. So and R is given, that is 3 centimeter. So that is written here. R is 3 centimeter. Lambda is 1.54 angstrom, and n is equal to 1. So we are taking S1 by substituting these values in above equation. So n is equal to 1, lambda is 1.54 angstrom, and R is 3 centimeter, and Sn is equal to 0.29 centimeter. So we express the angstrom in terms of centimeters. So that is 1.54 into 10 power minus 8 centimeter. Then by calculating this, we get A is equal to 16 amps. Sorry, 16 angstroms. Okay, so it is a problem. So we can calculate the lattice parameters in that way from the information available from the experiment. So there is correction here. In this formula earlier it was A, it should not be A, it is Sn. And similarly in before equation also here it is Sn. So we have to make correction. Now we see the other diffraction techniques. So other diffraction techniques. So the in addition to the X-ray diffraction technique, the other diffraction techniques are electron diffraction and neutron diffraction methods. Okay, so these are particles. So the particles are associated with matter waves. They also behave like waves, and the matter wavelength is the de Broglie matter wavelength is lambda is equal to h by mv. So according this, so the if the particles possess lesser mass and the wavelength associated with it is greater. Similarly, if the particles are moving with faster velocity and the wavelength corresponding to it is smaller, and the de Broglie matter waves concept is purely related to matter and its velocity, and it is independent of charge. Therefore, so that is why we are having the matter wavelength for electrons, which are charged particles, and neutrons, which are neutral particles. Okay, so if they are having some velocity e, v, and its energy is half mv square, then v is equal to, by replacing that equation, e is equal to half mv square. From that relation, we substituting here, lambda is equal to h by under root 2mv. So it is the wavelength expression in terms of energy. So we see the neutron diffraction here only. Next, in the next class, we see the electron diffraction. So the mass of the neutron is 1.675 into 10 power minus 27 kg. And by substituting this, so h is the Planck's constant here, and we are writing the mass of the neutron, and E is kept as this. Then, so the wavelength, the de Broglie wavelength is equal to 0.28 by root E in terms of angstroms when E is expressed in electron volts. Okay, when energy is expressed in electron volts. So generally it is difficult to find the monochromatic neutron beam. That means the neutron beams, they are having particular energy range. So generally it possesses some certain range of energies. Therefore we call the beam as white neutron beam. So we get the white neutron beam from the reactor phase is allowed to fall through a collimator onto a large single crystal of lead. So since the range is varying, so it is, since it is not monochromatic, that means it possesses different energy ranges. For that reason, we are having a large single crystal of lead, beryllium, germanium to observe the diffraction pattern. So if we use large crystals for this white neutron beam, we observe the diffraction pattern for those planes which obey the Bragg's condition. Okay, so even though by using large single crystal, we are unable to get a bright intensified diffraction pattern. So that is the drawback. So we get the bright intensity pattern when we use monochromatic neutron beam, but there are limitations. Okay, so if we use monochromatic beam, so we can get the diffraction pattern corresponding to particular angle, but it is white neutron beam, the extent of angular range is also varies. That means it is a wide range. So it depends on two factors: the extent of angular range over which the neutrons are to be collected is a compromise between the two cases. So the two cases, if the range is small, the angular range is small, the beam will be highly monochromatic. So but very weak. So if the range is large, the beam will be stronger but less monochromatic. So in any case, the beam is not strong. In this case, okay, but weak. Okay, the beam is not very strong. A typical monochromatized neutron beam has an intensity of the order of 10 neutrons per centimeter per second, which is about 4 orders of magnitude smaller than that obtained with X-rays. So because of this reason, used to be the single crystal to be studied must be large. So here we use counters. So in place of films in X-ray, generally, so the reflected rays are observed using photographic films in X-ray, but in neutron diffraction we are using counters. Okay, the radiation detector counters. So the neutrons are scattered by the nuclei of the atoms. So in case of X-rays are scattered by the electron clouds of atom, and in case of neutron diffraction, neutrons are scattered by the nuclei of the atoms. So neutron diffraction locates the nuclei of atom. So since it is repelled by the neutrons or nuclei, so with neutron diffraction, one is able to locate the nuclei of atoms. In X-ray diffraction, it gives a picture of their electron clouds. The combination of the two techniques, it gives the information of electron distribution around the nuclei. Okay, the nuclei. So in X-ray diffraction, the wavelength and the scattering centers are in the same size. So they are in the same order. The wavelength of the X-ray and scattering centers. So those are electrons and atoms, especially electron cloud. So the electron cloud dimension is treated as atom, that is atmosphere of atom. So therefore, they here wavelength and scattering centers are in the same order of magnitude in size. But in case of neutron diffraction, the scattering centers are nuclei. So those nuclei, as compared to the atom, nucleus is much smaller. Therefore, the nucleus is, and here the in case of neutron diffraction, the beam is neutron beam, and they are particles which are having some mass. The wavelength associated with the neutron beam is higher. So the wavelength of neutron beam is higher. At the same time, the nucleus size is smaller as compared to the atom or electron cloud. So totally the scattering centers are much smaller than the wavelength. Hence, the neutron waves diffracted from opposite sides of the atoms do not interfere destructively. Therefore, neutron scattering factors are remain constant for all nuclei. So, in X-ray case, since the X-ray diffracted from different portions of atom, those rays are in different phases. They lead to constructive and destructive interference. Because of that reason, so there was the talk of atomic scattering factor or atomic form factor. Here, so the type of phase conditions are not involved, and therefore the scattering neutron scattering factors are same for all nuclei. So, and hence the neutron scattering factors are not proportional to the atomic number of nuclei. So in case of the X-ray diffraction, the atomic scattering factor was proportional to Z. So F less than Z in extensional case, exceptional case, F is equal to Z. But here it is not at all proportional to Z. It is independent of Z. So it is about neutron diffraction. So in this lecture we have studied about the rotating crystal method, and in this fixed wavelength is used and the crystal is rotated. Because of the rotation of the crystal, the diffraction angles vary. According to those angles, the corresponding planes, set of planes, produce reflections, and they form cones on the film coated to the cylindrical camera. Okay, by developing the film, so we observe the pattern, and there are layer lines and row lines are there. So the distance between adjacent or not adjacent, the distance between the central layer line, that is zero layer line, and the other layer line distance is measured as Sn, and that is substituted in the formula. A is equal to, so n lambda by Sn into r square plus Sn square whole power 1 by 2. So this total term is in denominator. So we calculate Sn, and r is the radius of the camera which is fixed, that is 3 centimeter, and n is the order. So by substituting all these quantities, we can calculate the lattice vector, the primitive lattice vector. So similarly, by rotating the crystal in other directions, we can calculate the other lattice vectors, B and C. So in that way, we calculate the lattice parameters and hence the crystal structure. Okay, thank you very much for watching.